Alright, what we got here is a super duper aspect ratio calculator. I made this tool to basically suit my own needs, my own wants. And maybe it'll prove to be useful to someone else out there. So basically, when the page loads, it looks just like we see here. By default, everything is set to 16:9 because that's the most common aspect ratio that we see in everyday use with your monitors and TVs. That's primarily where my brain is thinking here. So if you wanted some content, let's say you got some 400 by 600 images, just type them in there. And you can see here that would be like, let's say you had a 4x6 photo that you had the photo lab print, and then you scanned it, and then you put that 4x6 scanned photo on your computer monitor or your TV, and it was a portrait format photo. Okay, this is roughly what it's going to look like. The blue content box here in the middle, this is the simulation of your photo, and in the black box around it, that's your 16:9 computer monitor or TV. Now maybe you got one of them fancy new gaming monitors that's 21:9, or you can just type the number in there, bam, now you can see what that vertical 4x6 photo is going to look like on your 21:9 aspect ratio monitor. Isn't that cool? I think it is. Now we got some other things going on in here, because right now we got this drop down menu here at the top. By default, when the page loads, it's set to custom content height and width ratio unlocked, which allows you to do what I was doing here. You just type in whatever you want, and it'll do whatever you want. However, sometimes you might want to lock in an aspect ratio for your content. Let's say you're working with some video, and the aspect ratio of your video is not going to change, right? So I just selected the 4:3 aspect ratio here. You can also refer to that as 1:1.333, and by default that gives us a content size here of 800 by 600. Now you can change that to whatever you want too. So let's say I like 640 by 480, because when it comes to VHS transfers, that's typically the dimensions of the videos that I have worked with. And so now, without changing our frame width or height, we can see what that 640 by 480 video content is going to look like on a 21:9 monitor. You got the black bars on the left and right side. We call that pillar boxing. And over here we've got the term pillar boxed. Now you might notice that this green text here that says calculated approximate for 4:3. Well, I may improve this later to not say approximate, but the reason this text is green is because this is not actually an approximation. Our ratios are exactly matching 4:3, okay, because we got the 640 by 480. The way the content width and content height input boxes work here is they are constrained to increments of 8 pixels. And the reason that is because almost every compression algorithm I've seen, whether it's for videos or pictures, it works in blocks of 8 pixels or 16 pixels or some other number that is evenly divisible by 8. So when it comes to optimizing your visual content, let's say, for compression algorithms and also for hardware processing like your GPU, you want to keep your dimensions of your visual media to be divisible evenly by 8. So 640 by 480, those are both numbers that evenly divide into 8. Now you see sometimes the content aspect ratio text here is this orange color, and that's because we don't have an exact 4:3 ratio, which is what we have selected up here in our drop down menu. So this is our target aspect ratio, and this may or may not be a big concern to you. This can be a big concern to me at times, so that's why I wanted to have the differentiation with the text color here, basically letting me know that, hey, when I get the exact aspect ratio that I want, with my dimensions being evenly divisible by 8, I get the green text to let me know. And if you're wondering how I'm changing these values here without actually typing numbers, I'm just hitting the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. It works really nice. And you can also use the tab key and shift tab to go back and forth between your different inputs on the page. That's a little accessibility tweak that every page should be accessible like that. Anyway, and so since I just explained the basics of why you see orange and green text here, the other thing that could be useful to you is to know when you've got a match on your frame height as well, or your frame aspect ratio. So there you go. If you got a frame width of 16 and a frame height of 12, that's a 4:3 ratio, which is the same ratio that we're after with our preset up here and our numbers here. And so our output text here to the right of our simulated visual representation, that text gets turned green too, because everything's kind of in harmony here. Everything's got the exact 4:3 matching ratio. And I have just discovered another bug here that I will need to fix as soon as I'm done with this video. The output text to the right here shouldn't be green if the frame ratio and content ratios are not matching. But that should just about do it for the overview of how this amazing little aspect ratio calculator works. And one of the other things that kind of ran through my mind as I was working on this thing, and part of the inspiration for wanting a tool like this, especially with the simulated visual representation, I have a lot of experience working with people that don't understand these basic concepts of aspect ratios. I don't know a better way of putting it into words, and it is very challenging at times for me to be able to explain these concepts to people that are not well versed in these matters as I am. So with this simulated visual representation, I could see this potentially being useful as like a learning aid to help people maybe better understand aspect ratios. I don't know if that would be useful in like a school type environment or like a professional workplace environment. But it might be useful to somebody somewhere out there, I think. And one other feature I didn't mention, but if you notice as I use my up and down arrow keys here to change the frame widths and frame heights, I have those numbers incremented in 0.25 increments, just because I like that a little bit nicer than whole numbers. It does have the downside of you can't use your up and down arrow keys to put in like a 0.333, but you can do that kind of stuff by typing it in there and it still works as expected. I'll go ahead and put a link to the GitHub repo project down in the description of this video. See you later.